Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mrs. Sedalis,
Here.
Dr. Aruna Detasan,
Here.
Dr. Moore,
Here.
Mr. Kim,
Here.
Mr. Cass,
Here.
Mr. Capello.
Here. So this evening, we were scheduled to have a special presentation for Mr. Brian Feinstein, who's the retiring CEO of St. Clair's Medical Center, but due to the weather, we're going to be rescheduling that to a later date. Dr. Forte, we'll move on to superintendent's comments.
Sure. I'm going to do assistant superintendent's comments as well. So strategic plan update, there's a new shared folder for space consideration in your in the committee folder. If anybody wants to see that, it's called Space Considerations. It comes from the strategic plan operations group. There's old and new docs in there. Take some time to look through it. It's some good stuff to consider. We'll keep talking we'll keep talking and moving on. On February 3rd, Riverview Rockets, that's the Riverview students, participated in a St. Jude's Marathon led by the 5th grade K kids. This was in honor of a Riverview student who's struggling with some medical conditions. Ben Barnish, Gabe Barth, Henry Beck, Liam Deegan, Emma Leonard, Morgan Luer, Ava Nauheimer, Conrad Posina, Angelina Van Loo, Jaron West. Under the direction of Mrs. Jameson, these students led service learning project by speaking to all homerooms about St. Jude's research, making an announcement in the peaceful dismissal, and then keeping track of the fundraising by monitoring our school's webpage. Their outstanding leadership, dedication, and commitment to the project was due in part that one of our own Riverview Rockets is undergoing some treatment at St. Jude's. They were thrilled to share with all the students and staff that the final fundraising total was $13,680 to St. Jude's. Now that's a pretty big accomplishment considering it was just a service project by those 8 kids. Pretty cool that they raised $13,000. I happened to be there on the day they were doing this mathathon. They did all kinds of different stuff, so it was great. The middle school county superintendent's leadership award will be given to Angelina Purcell. That's something that gets presented in May at the county superintendent's luncheon dinner with the award recipients and all the superintendents in the county as well as the principals. The action plan committees for the strategic plan are working. We expect to have goals and objectives for the BOE approval, and it's going to be May. I will put the exact date. It's the first May meeting. We're going to be ready to present. I'll put it out to the public. We'll be ready to go. The NJ New Jersey State Police training for 4th and 5th grade. It was excellent. One of the troopers asked the kids, raise your hand if you live by water. No lie, 80% of the kids raised their hand, because we have 8 lakes and rivers and all kinds of stuff going on here. So I think it was an appropriate use of our time and resources, but it was the kids liked it too. So I had this on here for a while, so I'm thinking about some possible adjustments for the 22-23 calendar. Now it looks like we'll probably have a snow day tomorrow, and in that case, we would just cut off the last 4 days of June and end on Friday the 16th if we still have 4 remaining. Obviously, there could be a lot more snow throughout the year, but as right now, that's what I'm thinking. Assistant superintendent comments. Kindergarten pre-registration for the 23-24 school year is open. The application will be found on denville.org. Current kindergarten pre-registration is at 140 total. Dr. Michelle Borba, author of Thrivers and The Unselfie, to present on March 22nd at Riverview. There's a virtual option also available. Tickets are free, but registration is required. There's a registration form on the website and in the Friday folder. Read Across America Week activity started today. Thank you to the community members who volunteered to be guest readers. And tomorrow is the last day to submit a Black History Month poster and poetry contest entries. They can be submitted to the front office of each building. That's it for superintendent and assistant superintendent comments.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Forte. Mrs. Gorowski, anything from the business administrator's office?
The governor's speech will be, for the state aid numbers, will be given tomorrow, the 28th. Usually 48 hours after his speech, these budget software is uploaded and updated with the new state aid numbers. So we should have an idea most likely by Wednesday afternoon. And at that point, we'll forward you more information on the budget details.
Great, thank you very much. We're obviously all very interested in that, so looking forward to knowing. Okay, at this point, we're going to open up for public discussion items. These will be anything related to tonight's agenda. We do have someone online, Sure, you can do that. Yeah, I get you. For the policy and okay. We're going to open for public discussion at 7:36 p.m. You can refer to the printed agenda for the rules and requirements. If anyone would like to comment, please approach and announce your name and address for the record. If anyone online would like to make a comment, you can use the raise your hand feature or unmute yourself. Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close the first public comment section at 7:37 p.m. and we'll move on. Okay, next are Number 4, yes, okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay, so old business action to be taken. Mr. Anderson, would you move us through these items, please?
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move under old business items A, B, and C. Under A, there's item 1 and 2. Under B, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to table item number 4 under B. And then under C, 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Any comments or questions on any of these items?
We probably should note, I believe, Mrs. Gorowski, the correct format would be to, you can table it indefinitely or we can table it till a certain time, right? So if we want to say we'll table it till the next meeting, would that be appropriate?
Instead of all that, I'm just going to remove it. Superintendent's going to remove
Okay,
number
perfect.
4.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, are you okay with that?
Yep,
Mr.
strike number 4.
Yeah, Mr. Kim, you okay with striking it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis?
Yes, but I need to remove myself from C 1 and 2.
And from B as
Abstain,
well?
I'm sorry, abstain from C 1 and 2.
Thank you. Dr. Abunajatasan?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay, moving on to new business personnel. Dr. Moore, would you move us through these items tonight?
I'd like to move the following items under personnel. Number 1, looks like a Series A through K, series of extra duties. Some staff for the Denville Accelerated Learning Academy. Some vacation days cashed in, and 3 resignations. And then numbers 2 through 6 look like Family Leave Act, and 7 is the calendar, and then 8 is A through D, which are some substitute approvals.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Any questions or concerns on these personnel items? Okay, if everyone's good, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedalis,
Yes.
Dr. Abunadatasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capello.
Yes. Okay, moving on to instruction and program. Mr. Anderson, would you move us through these items, please?
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move under instruction program B, items 1 through 5.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Kim.
Just want to make an important note about number 5 here. If you take a look at that, it does say that it's funded through ESSER and ARP, which is non-recurring funds, meaning they'll be expired this year. So it will be something we either need to add to the budget for the following year, or we won't be able to fund it. So the funds are going to dry up, this federal money, and it's the COVID relief.
Along those lines, Dr. Forte, maybe we could try to get some data on the students that attended it in the last few years, and maybe just kind of the, not that that's the end all be all of it, but just to see academically how they've done. Obviously, that was to assist them a little bit more. I don't know how much data we can get, but maybe a little bit.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if we can maybe have that go through back through I&P.
And for future discussion, could this be something like tuition-based or something? So,
We could always do things like that, yes.
So says the finance guy.
But in whole or in part, I mean, certainly, right? We could defray the cost for sure. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
I would just real quick, one second extra, thank you for Dr. Forte and Dr. Cullis for kind of putting together this accelerated learning academy over the summer. I think it's been well received and obviously well attended. So it was obviously a good use of those funds while we had them.
What Sandy did too, it's really not me. What she did was she married it with our enrichment program, which worked great for people. So it did provide a very reasonably priced, kind of like a camp, or even if you want to call it daycare for kids, Mondays through Thursdays, in the summer. It worked out great the way it worked, where if you wanted your child to go to Dala in the morning, then in the afternoon they take enrichment. We set it up so that there was supervision during lunchtime in between, and they did get a pretty good amount of time. And they did even get busing to Dala, and then they had to pick their kids up because we didn't have busing coming back from that. So it worked pretty good.
Great, thank you. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedalis,
Yes.
Dr. Abunadatasan,
yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capello.
Yes. Moving on to policy, Mr. Kim, would you move us through these items for first reading?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Tonight, I'd like to motion that we approve tonight the 20 policies and regulations listed in the agenda for first reading. The first two are for abolishing those policies, and the remaining 18 as listed for first reading.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any questions or notes or concerns about these policies and regulations? Okay. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedalis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capella.
Yes. Okay, moving on to finance. Back to you, Mr. Kim, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, I'd like to move tonight to Section D, Finance. We'd like to approve 1 through 4 as a block. Calling attention to number 2, the donations from the Denville PAL and the Denville Education Foundation, and number 3, the donations for the whiteboards from the Valley View PTA.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Cass. As always, we want to call out the donations that we're receiving. Thank you very much to those organizations. That is greatly appreciated, and Denville Schools wouldn't be where we are without the support of these organizations giving their time and money to us. Nothing else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedalis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
No on the milk fund. Yes on everything else.
Mr. Capello.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Cass, would you care to move us through transportations and building and grounds?
Will do. Nothing to vote on for transportation tonight, but on buildings and grounds, we do have 4 items. Item 2.1 is that the board approve the attached memorandum agreement with the CCM, County College of Morris County, for reunification. We've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's something that I hope we never do, but we do have to have that in play. And also, as mentioned at the last meeting and the previous meetings, that we do some dry runs on that with the students periodically, make sure everybody knows where to go and how to do it. Item 2.2, we're asking the board to approve the attached use of facility request by DST Basketball. As discussed at the work session, this was an adult group that would use it, the gym, when our PIL youngsters are not using it. Item 2.3, to approve the attached proposals from EI Associates for Professional and Engineering Services for a partial roof replacement and repair at the Riverview Elementary School in the amount of $9,500. Item 2.4 is to approve the attached quote for a new guardrail at the Riverview rear playground. This is a cost share project to be completed with the Denville Township. Our district cost will be $3,315. This is another good example of shared services that we have with the Township of Denville.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Comments, questions?
I want to quickly thank EI Associates along with the administration. The 2.3 partial roof repair, it will be covered, the majority of it will be covered by warranty, right? I believe, Ms.
Some
Orlowski?
of it will be covered by warranty. Some we're working on fighting the warranty company. We might win, we might not. And then there's some that was never done, like originally. And there's also some things that were maybe could have been designed better that we're going to make some corrections and changes. It's not going to be an exorbitant cost, but right now there's some issues with the roof there. It's it's about 10 years old, but it still has another 15 years on the warranty. So we want to put a little bit of money into it to keep that going for a while.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Forte, can you just provide a little more comment on the areas that were under warranty, why it's not being completely covered under warranty?
The reason why right now, and again, we're not done with it. Our engineers and their engineers are going back and forth. Settling is not included. Certain settling of the building is not included in the warranty. Like if it settles and it moves in a certain way, vertical movement is not covered, and you could see it easily in the warranty. So it's legitimate. there people are saying that, the warranty company is saying that some of the repairs are due to settlement, and our people are saying it's not. But even if the whole thing was a problem, we're talking about something like $10,000, not like hundreds of thousands. So even if it is that, in the worst scenario, the fixing of that area is not going to be an exorbitant cost, considering it's $1 million roof. So there is some issues with it, though. Like, there's a little bit of leaking, and some, you guys are aware, there's some other things going on. So regardless of that part, we do have to fix it. I think in the end, we'll make out pretty good. They already did some of the repairs already.
So they're saying settlement of the actual building?
Like, if the building settles at all and shifts or moves, some of it's not it's also the flashing that goes up the wall. So that's the part that's in question. If it moves a certain way, like, they can tell by the way it's folding that it looks like it moved a little bit. So they have to do a little bit more in-depth research. They have to pull a piece off to see what's actually behind it, and then they have to repair it. So there's a couple things going on, but we wanted the architect to be involved in it.
Okay, thanks.
And the other thing is, if you drive through Gardner, the playground where our kids play, there's no guardrail to stop cars from going onto the basketball court there. That's our property, by the way. The town maintains it, but it's our property. So it's used by our kids. It's used by the school after. But now that parking lot's become more of a pass-through too, not just a parking lot, and cars are driving through there to get to my neighborhood, our neighborhood, right? So I just felt like it was odd that we didn't have it when we have a barrier at all the other playgrounds that we have district-wide, except that one. So that's why I brought it to her attention, and they hopped right on it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, if not, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedalis,
Yes.
Dr. Arunajitasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Capello.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to the good of the cause, committee reports, correspondence, and our discussion items and our highlights for tonight's meeting.
If I may,
Want to
yep.
start? Yeah.
So I know I'll be pretty quick about this, but first off, I want to remind the board that we are going to be discussing heavily over the next couple of meetings the budget. So if there are questions, my door is open. You feel free to call me at any time. And I know Ms. Gorowski's always been gracious, and her door has always been open. So please contact one of us if there's any questions about the budget and anything else that you might want to discuss. I also wanted to continue the discussion about the building capacity. I know that this is not something that we could sort of sweep under the rug. So in the minutes, I'll just recap some of the items that I included. The Dr. Grip's demographic study, which he gave us a 5-year outlook, 2022 and 2023, which was projected to be 16,079 students. Dr. Forte, reminded me that we already outpaced that. We have roughly, according to last month's enrollment, we had 1,700, which is 21 over Dr. Grip's projection. So over the next 5 years, he projects at 2026, 2027, that we'll have an enrollment of 1,877 students. So that's roughly over 177 students that we currently have enrolled now. Now, the second floor, as a reminder, the second floor for St. Mary's can hold another potentially 80 to 90 students but those classrooms are not renovated. So, and again, the real question after this is how much higher will that chart go up? So sort of keep those numbers in mind over the next couple of weeks. I know that Dr. Forte in his comments mentioned that he created a new folder, so thank you very much for that. It contains everything. It contains the old demographic study that we no longer use. It contains Dr. Grip's study, and it contains other information like long-range facility plans or even the state Department of Education sort of building assessment or capacity assessment. So please continue to give those numbers some of your brain power, and let's continue the discussion, maybe not tonight, but in future meetings.
And I don't know if you've seen, but there's some of those construction projects that have been coming down the pipe are coming now. Like the one by Alexis Diner, I drove by there the other day. That's moving. I heard that the other one by the train station is going to take off. Not the one by Mount Tabor, the other train station. There's going to be taken off. So I guess all these things that we've been talking about for years are actually starting to happen.
In my mind, because I've been thinking about it a lot, this is a two-phase project. One, we commit to the second floor as soon as possible, and maybe we can strike up a deal with St. Mary's that if we're going to renovate the second floor for them, they can possibly give us another 5-year lease extension at a discounted rate, and that can buy us some time so that if we are going to renovate one of our existing buildings, and in my opinion, that probably is the best course of action, because then that minimizes the number of staff hirings. Like, if we went with a new building, we'd have to hire a new principal and assistant principal, et cetera. So if we could somehow renovate like Riverview or something like that and throw a second floor somehow, or another annex or what have you, that could be a good option for us as a district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any good of the cause items? Okay.
I'll just mention one thing, that on the radar screen in some states where they want to urbanize suburban areas with high-rise buildings and in order to create more affordable housing. It's in play in Michigan, and I know that on the federal level, nothing has happened, but it has been talked about, cutting federal funds to states that don't want to do that. So that could have a real big impact. At least I don't know where they build a high-rise building in Denville at this point. I think we're pretty close to built out with these recent initiatives going on with the townhomes. So, but that's another thing to keep in mind. It wasn't that long ago when when COA was in play that they talked about draining, a lake or two to put more housing in. So it didn't happen, but it's on people's minds.
I think it's, Tino, I think you and I talked about this. This has to be brought up with the school boards on a legislative perspective. This has to be, like, in my opinion, Denville's #1 legislative issue, period. All the other stuff is like small potatoes compared to what this means. And I feel like it's been kicked down the road for 20 years. I mean, really, no one wants to take it on. No governor has taken it on. No legislator has taken it on. I mean, they all just kind of push it off. I mean, there's no COA right now, right? So it's all sitting in the courts. And then unless you want to build all affordable, which it appears that no town wants to do, which I understand the downside to that, but the downside to not doing that is that it's 5x the amount of housing. So we're sitting at, and by the way, Don, these buildings that are going in now, and a lot more that haven't even started yet, are all part of the commitment through 2025. And then it starts all over again. So we haven't even figured out, we just figured out the 2025 stuff, and we're in 2023. So that was 2015 to 2025, and here we are. And that includes 65 over on Castor Line. That includes I think 100 and some odd right by the forges. It includes Station Road for 100 units. I mean, those have been stalled or haven't really moved or whatever, but those are all included in that. So it's going to get uglier before it gets better, for sure. So.
That actually dovetails into what I wanted to bring up. So I'm having a meeting. So New Jersey School Boards organizes legislative meetings with different legislators, typically during the summer, but this year they're doing it now because the last couple of years they haven't happened. I have a meeting, Michael Bertram from the high school district and I have a meeting with Aura Dunn on March 31st. This is a great opportunity to bring concerns to her directly. So anything of a legislative nature that, and this can obviously be issue number one for sure, but I know like James, you had sent them emails about the buses and using, using reserves for certain purchases. So think about that over the next couple of weeks and anything you can think of that you would like us to talk about when we get together with her, send my way and we'll create a list.
I also think it's important to note that I think this issue gets bad really fast, and I don't think people realize how bad it's going to get, because what's going to happen is that Morris County School of Technology, my prediction is that other school districts that are housing their programs now are going to kick them out, because Morris Knolls is going to run out of space. So they're going to say, we can't house your program any longer, just like Mountain Lakes just said. And then what happens? Now all of a sudden MCST is too big, right? And now all of a sudden this to me is a snowball that I'm not sure if the county even thought about. So this is something I know we've talked a little bit about, but I think it could potentially become a bigger issue really, really fast, because I think that it's not just in Denville. If you look in Parsippany, have you guys seen Menin, right? That's in Morris Township. I mean, look over in Parsippany, they're going to put, if you've seen the plans for where that used to be past on the eastbound side or westbound side of the Marriott going eastbound, that is unbelievable. You're talking, I think, close to 1,000 housing units that are going in there. And you're talking a downtown area, it's crazy what they're putting into these places. So there's some deep pockets that are being investing in these, so.
And you actually brought something up. I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to bring this up because it's important. MHRD had a open house kind of for the community to come in and talk about what they'd like to see in the next superintendent, because the current one is retiring. But they started the process by talking about strengths and weaknesses of the district. And several of the teachers from Morris Knolls and Morris Hills talked about how the fact that they are completely space constrained. They have no space. They have no space in classrooms. They are fighting for, fighting for classrooms for the number of kids they have. So to your point, right. So a school like that could certainly kick out the MCST academies that they are currently housing now if it gets much worse. And then you're going to see exactly, I think, what you're describing. So on that positive note, anything else we're going to talk about the board highlights for tonight, Steve?
I have the donations, the shared project for the Riverview Playground, and the approval of DALA for 2023. Info to follow.
Everybody okay with that? Any suggestions? Okay, I think we're good then. Okay, if there's nothing else anyone would like to discuss under good of the cause, we'll move to the second open public comment section. Same rules apply that are printed in the agenda. If you would like to make a comment, you can approach and give your name and address. And if you're online, you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself. It is now 8:03 p.m. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the open public comment at 8:03 p.m. We do have need for an executive session. We do not anticipate voting afterwards. Mrs. Adelis, would you care to move us into executive?
Sure. I move to convene as an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss negotiations, legal, security, personnel issues, and student issues. Minutes of the session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ellis. Thank you, Mr. Kim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we are in executive session at 8:04 p.m. Thank you very much.